Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for To Your Eternity, chapter 152.5. When we last left our heroes, Tonari filled up her end of the bargain with Fushi to go check on his body in the janitor's closet, and she finds his body not super hidden away, though I guess because Bon is the only person in there, it doesn't matter that big a deal. But she does find a whole bunch of weapons, and that's sort of where we leave Tonari off. We then go back to Fushi and Mizuha and Izumi's Knocker underground, where for a large part of their initial conversation, Izumi's Knocker ends up really talking for Mizuha. Talking about how, the world is not a paradise, and until it becomes a paradise, Mizuha must stay below ground to, protect her or something. But then, there's this bit where Mizuha's grandfather hands both Fushi and Mizuha this bowl of food that someone, I think it was Best Bonist on Tumblr, noted that it was bits of the Fushi body that we saw Mizuha sewing up at some point in 151, which is a lot. And it's not really addressed until Mizuha spits out a finger or something. Fushi declares that he is not real. Mizuha refutes that, but also doesn't really want to give Fushi any sort of more information until Fushi makes some sort of show that he's not going to just run away. And so Fushi takes off the rope that's connecting into the outside, sort of giving himself up to Mizuha. And that's where we left off, with Mizuha sort of acknowledging that. And we jump right on into 152.5, Something Grotesque Part 2. And we open not really responding to the rope bit, but Fushi just continuing his conversation. Mizuha, I'm jealous of you. You've been Mizuha since the day you were born, and you've always been allowed to be. And Mizuha pushes back. I do think this is Mizuha and not the Knocker. Someone commented on the last video if I thought it was Mizuha or the Knocker talking, and there's something I've noted, though I haven't really, search through to find definitive proof, but there's something about the font that changes, I think, depending on who's in charge. Because if you look at page 6 of the last chapter, you're real, you're right here, you're talking with me right now, there's something very kind of blockish with those letters that we don't see in the rest of the chapter. On page 7, then if I die, would you cry for me? If you look at the W's, with you're talking with me right now and would you cry for me, the first one has the little lines at each of the points. I know I'm getting really nitty gritty, but I think without Blue Exorcist around, I really need somewhere to talk about the fonts. And Eternity here is giving me that. But I think there is a difference there. And I haven't really gone back through the prior chapters and compared when Mizuha talks with what font. But I think it normally is Mizuha who has that kind of font where the W's have lines and the T's have the little extra vertical diagonal bit. As opposed to her other font, which you see on page 7 in the last chapter, and in her first line this week, the yes, as my mother's trophy, that feels a lot rounder than that other font. Also, that line very much has to be Mizuha because the Guardian Knocker is not the daughter of Izumi. But yeah, I do believe that at this point it is Mizuha. While I do think that at least that first line of hers last week was the Knocker. Anyway, Mizuha says, yes, as my mother's trophy. But Fushi protests, you're wrong, Mizuha. Maybe Izumi-san did raise you to be her pride and joy, and maybe you didn't like it. But she loved you. That much is true. And Fushi, of course, has sort of been regaled with all of Izumi's backstory from the early 140s. But Mizuha pushes back, liar. That's just what it looks like. You know you can't prove it. Fushi tells her then, Fushi tells her, I can prove it. And Mizuha just looks at him. Take a look. I think that album proves that she loved you. And Mizuha does this awkward little hand pose before, I guess, lunging out with I imagine almost a kind of, crazed grab at the book. Maybe it's the speed lines or something on that third panel on page 2. I don't know. But Fushi tells Mizuha, the Knocker caused amnesia in Izumi-san. but she didn't want to forget you. Even if her painful memories all revolved around you, she desperately wanted to protect them. Oh, so the proof is that because Izumi had all these pictures, these are the pictures that Izumi took, showing her sort of love for Mizuha, I thought this might be the moment we came back around to the picture that fell out back in 151 part 3, I think. But Mizuha looked at all these pictures of herself and Izumi. I will say, I'm not quite sure this will not, like, some of these might not quite get the result Fushi wants. If you look at these, almost all of them in this first panel on page 3 are Mizuha with some kind of trophy. There's this one with the 2 hands at the top right, but every other one is Mizuha holding a trophy or a certificate or a ribbon or something, which doesn't quite show Izumi as anything but living vicariously through her daughter. Which, I mean, makes sense. Even Izumi is aware she was not a good mom at the time. I swallowed that water really fast. But then we see some more genuine pictures, it looks like. One with Mizuha as like maybe 8 years old, playing on the monkey bars. One that is just her and her mom with a trophy, but Izumi's just genuinely happy smile. And then one with the whole family, even creepy cult dad. And Mizuha seems affected by it, from the looks of it. And yeah, she genuinely tears up. And then the font shifts, saying, I remember this, all of it. I remember all of it. Okay, so if I'm right with the font theory, and I don't know why Oima would like swap the fonts up like that unless there was some meaning to it. Like again, how Blue Exorcist uses that particular font whenever Satan's in control of someone. Does that mean that the Guardian Knocker was already in control of Mizuha during these stories? Is this the Guardian Knocker again? I'm not sure. I don't know. But she slams the book down, now just openly weeping. I might be completely off base with the font thing. But the font can, like, for a second I was about to say that maybe the font was just, more important lines or, like, more dramatic lines have that special font. I remember this, all of it, I remember all of it, is one of those, like, I think sort of really important lines in Mizuha's arc, if this is a point where Mizuha sort of starts to come back to her humanity. And then that continues as she cries, after she slams the book, why would you show me this, Fushi? Which I guess might be, it still is the same font. It might be continuing, might be the same thing, it's just an important line. I don't know, maybe I'm off base here. Anyway, Izumi's knocker takes the book. They were painful memories. I knew you shouldn't look. So it looks like Izumi was the one who sort of arranged for Mizuha to not see the album last time. Though the Izumi knocker is sort of characterizing these memories as bad. That it's the memories themselves that are painful. And that's certainly not what Fushi's goal is. His goal is certainly to show her that her present is the painful part, and she can go back to those better days. Not quite the same way, of course, because you never really regain your past. That's not really a thing, but the same basic concept. She can go back to not being this knocker cult leader. And the question there is Izumi's knocker right? Or is Fushi? Like, what is the cause of Mizuha's tears here? I don't know. Anyway, then Grandpa Mizuha comes in. Now, why don't we get started? And we see the Occult Research Club getting dragged in. They didn't quite go home. Being dragged in by some cult members. They're calling, "Stop it! Let us go!" And I guess they're just dragged around to a birthday table as Grandpa sings, "Happy birthday, Mizuha! Happy birthday, Mizuha! Happy birthday, dear Mizuha! Happy birthday, Mizuha!" That's just a weird turn on the Happy Birthday song, I will say. I ended up singing it like the Happy Birthday song. I'm not sure it's meant to be, because normally there's a lot of to-yous instead of the actual name. I don't know. something to note, I think, but I'm not sure it's actually leading to anything. And then we cut to the Occult Club, or at least Tamaki and Senba, seated around the table kind of awkwardly. We then also see Yuki and Hanna, also awkward. And then Mizuha blows out her candles on this birthday cake. We see there's like also just these like cutesy balloons everywhere. It's really weird. It's just a really, really awkward conversation. Grandpa calls yay! And Yuki also claps and joins in. Yay! Which, like, way to read the room, man. And then we see, I think, is Senba the muscle? Or, no, Tamaki's the muscle guy. He's like, he eyes the cake, kind of drooling. Fushi shakes his head, like, don't do it. I think he has at least some flashbacks there to the Spirit Bear arc. What was the original? Was Hayase the original, or was she the little girl? I think she was the original, right? I might be stupid here. Yeah. Hayase. Who was the granddaughter there? Hisame was her name. Gotcha. So yeah, back to Hayase and Margin and Perona way back then, right? When she drugged the two of them, and Fushi is a little like shaking his head, and Hanna calls, I know it's rude to say this in front of your mother and grandfather, and Hanna sort of declares, but you don't belong here, Mizuha. We want you to come back. And Mizuha is seemingly sort of reverted from the sort of getting in touch with her past we saw when she read the album. Because what she says is, why did you come here? I know you don't really care about me. Which, like, she doesn't really have any evidence to back that one up. And Hana's confused. What? Why are you saying that? And Mizuha, I think this is, I do think, their first confrontation since 146, since the kiss. So maybe that's what this whole scene is tied up in. As Mizuha continues, you're all talk. And Hanna protests, we came all this way to see you. Doesn't that prove anything? We all work together to find you because we care about you. But Mizuha stops her, not so loud, Hanna. You're so noisy. And like, that's very clearly a deflection there. That's not really addressing any of Hanna's points. And Hanna calls her out on that. Don't change the subject. Tell me, why do you have to stay here? And then Tamaki interrupts and asks, may I ask something? Mizuha-senpai, are you seeing a doctor? And Mizuha presses, no. Why? And Tamaki tells her, then think of me as your doctor when I tell you that insufficient exposure to sunlight is unhealthy. It can raise your risk of osteoporosis. That's an oddly, like smart... It's a weird, it's not a normal take. It's definitely might be the more efficient take to get to Mizuha after, all of Fushi and Hana's more appeals to emotion have failed. Maybe you should try your kind of dreadfully unhealthy Mizuha. But it doesn't really work. You aren't a doctor, so I don't want your medical advice. And Tamaki still sort of sees that as a win, almost. Roger that. And Hanna, that little aside over, Hanna goes back to what she's trying to do. I don't know how you were raised, Mizuha, and maybe I can't help, but I still want to do whatever I can for you. And then Mizuha sort of brushes that off. You don't need to do anything anymore, Hanna. I'm not expecting anything from you. And Hanna is sort of kind of taken aback by that. Then, what should I... And then Senba raises his hand. Oh, pardon me. This place smells like stagnant water. Which is just a really sudden, like Tamaki and Senba are both sort of interrupting this sort of emotional, like, trying to reason with Mizuha with what I guess is a technically more scientific approach. Though again, Mizuha's not really in a place to listen to reason. But anyway, Mizuha looks at Senba, huh? And Senba goes on, and that cake appears to taste like vomit. I think you better leave, Mizuha-senpai, before you start to stink too. And Tamaki stands up. All those in favor? Are they just gonna, like, hold a mock election and then kidnap her. And everyone raises their hand, except for maybe Fushi and Mizuha and that whole family, of course. But we see, Tamaki and Senba standing. Tamaki's like both hands raised. Senba is like just the one. Hanna and Yuki kind of meekly raise their hands. And Mizuha looks at that. And then we cut to Fushi, who excitedly says, "Wow, how can you be so rude? You should kick them out." Which is weird. I don't know why Fushi is doing... Oh, I think Fushi wants to get them out of there, because they're in a dangerous situation. Fushi knows that, and he wants them out of there as quickly as possible. Even if that means that losing Mizuha for now, he can get Mizuha again later. But he can't bring... Or he can bring them back, is what he does. With the Fae, but he'd rather not put them into any more danger than he has to. I forget, can Fushi bring people back if their bodies are currently possessed by knockers? Does he have to kill the knocker body in order to resurrect them? I forget. Forget the exact order they brought back Mamori, because that would probably be the closest example. But Mizuha just says, "I think we better not for now." And she's back to that same font. Which, if that is the Guardian Knocker, might be a very, very much a threat. And Fushi's sort of taken aback there. Huh? Why not? And Mizuha asked him, "Fushi, what was your dream again?" "I just remembered. To make everyone's dreams come true, right? And the world has to be at peace before you can do that. I've realized what peace is." Oh, that's a bad sign. Though, another strike against my font theory is the whole "what was your dream again" is all in the normal font until that last sentence, which is back in the more like block font. So again, don't know what's going on with the fonts, but I do think the fonts have to mean something, right? Like, why swap like that unless there's some meaning there? But anyway, I realized what peace is. This is a bad sign, I think. As Fushi asks, "Did you do something?" And we see a Fushi body. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that's the Fushi body she was sewing up. Huh? Did you just get here, Fushi-kun? It's at the school, by the way. Did you oversleep? Good morning. And they note the white hair. Huh? Did you change your hair back? And Tonari watches him in the distance. I guess we are going to see Tonari interact some way after all. Like I somewhat predicted last chapter. As Tonari thinks, what the? He came to school after all? And that's where we leave off. Okay, so, first off, let's talk next chapter, because according to Comixology, 153 is the next chapter they have listed, and that's coming in on the 22nd, which is 3 weeks from yesterday. I'm a couple days late for this chapter, of course. But the series runs in the same magazine as Eden Zero, and so whenever that happens, I always kind of like double check with Eden Zero to see if the whole magazine's off. And it's not. It's off for one of those 2 weeks. So I think there might be a part 3 to 152 next week, or the week after, whichever one is not the week off there. I think it's next week. Or Eden Zero's off next week and the week after, and I'll see you again on the 22nd. But anyway, let's talk this chapter, because that bit aside, there's a whole lot of shit going on here. All of it is very interesting. Again, not quite sure, what the change in fonts means, because that feels important, though I don't think it's my initial assumption of the fonts indicate who's talking, because they're too similar to each other. Like, I think the most damning evidence is that I realized what peace is. It's sort of the same damn thought going on between both fonts. So it's sort of weird if one of them is Mizuha talking and the Guardian Knocker is just doing the exact same thing as Mizuha. So maybe that signifies that in a lot of ways they've come to see the world the same way. That Mizuha's idea of what peace is and the Guardian Knocker's is the same. And I'm a little skeptical of... I highly suspect Mizuha's up to no good. I'm not quite sure what that no good is going to look like, but I'm thinking back to that line about peace. Because we know the Knocker's initial stated purpose was to take everyone to paradise. To kill them, and they all go to paradise, and that's what a good world is. And then in the present day, they changed that to the whole killing suicidal people thing. And I'm curious if what Mizuha's decided is that was the wrong way to go about it. They should go back to the original plan, maybe? I don't know. But Knocker-Fushi is going to lead to some kind of drama some way or another. Tonari, I imagine, will take the lead on that point, unless, because Fushi's ropeless, he can't get out of here that fast, thanks to his sort of acquiescence to Mizuha. I don't know. There's just a whole lot going on here with that point. But then we have the Occult Club, specifically Hanna, who is the most sort of desperate to sort of get Mizuha out of here. I suppose she does, there's a genuine affection, is why. I'm curious, and I think I want to compare that to, say, Yuki, who has a very, I guess we haven't spent enough time with Hanna to work out how she feels about the kiss. Because Hanna's feelings on the kiss, I think, are sort of what we need to get a clearer picture of what exactly Hanna is doing right now. What is her goals? What is her main objective? And until we spend a little bit more time on her, it's kind of hard to work that out. But she does sort of, finally, after really all of 151 and 152, sort of hemming and hawing her way around, barely admitting that she wants to see Mizuha again, she just snaps here. You don't belong here. We want you to come back. And she's kind of taken aback by Mizuha's claim, you don't really care about me, which she doesn't quite deny, but she also is clearly not in agreement with. Why are you saying that? And then Mizuha dares to call her all talk. And Hanna really snaps there. We came all this way to see you, doesn't that prove anything? We all work together to find you because we care about you. And interestingly enough, I called this out earlier, but I want to take a closer look at it. Mizuha doesn't protest. She deflects there. Not so loud, you're so noisy doesn't really address any of what Hanna is talking about in that scene. It's just sort of almost like on some level she knows. She knows that Hanna's right and just sort of putting up this defense for some reason. Maybe there was a big change when she saw the album, realizing that people out there really do care about her, which sort of makes her question her whole allegiance to the Knocker cult. I don't know. There's a lot of, I think I might know what this character is thinking right now, going on with this storyline. And then we have Senbei and Tamaki, who have their more direct way, trying to literally vote Mizuha out of the cult. Which again cuts back to Fushi's response. How can you be so rude? And just looking at Fushi's face there, I do stand by my theory that he wants them out because they're in danger. And he's just got a really bad poker face. He's too excited to get them out of the room. Then I don't know. And then Mizuha reveals that she's realized what peace is. We see Knocker-Fushi, and that's kind of it. I do think, though, actually, one more thing about this, is that this will finally be the moment Fushi cannot hide about the Knockers anymore. Because Tonari, seeing a Knocker-Fushi, once she realizes that's not the real Fushi, she's going to work out real fast that A, the Knockers are back, and B, Fushi has probably been hiding them from her. She probably could start to figure that out when she saw all the weapons in the janitor's closet last chapter, which of course Fushi would not need if the world were truly at peace. But I think this will be the moment she finally finds out. And I can't wait to see how all that plays out. There's so much good stuff to this chapter. It's just genuinely incredible. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!